Top of the lane now, Gunrunner along the inside, Collected right up alongside. It looks like we're in for a classic in the classic. An eighth of a mile to go. Gunrunner digs deep, he finds more Collected. West Coast running on third, but Gunrunner the advantage. And Gunrunner is starting to draw clear the final 16. And Gunrunner, a superb performance in the classic. Gunrunner won it by about 2.5 in the end. Collected a very game second. West Coast was third. Then came War Story. Arrogate never involved. Gunavera, a long way back to Churchill. Behind Churchill was Mubtahij. And then came War Decree, Pavel, and Win the Space.
Say hello to the 2017 Horse of the Year in Gunrunner, who was just dynamite and emphatic with a big exclamation point, winning the Breeders' Cup Classic.
Wiping the egg off my face, yeah. Didn't like Gunrunner that much, so boy, did he prove me wrong. He just ran a fantastic race, and congratulations to all the connections.
Pretty incredible just how good he's gotten as a 4-year-old. Was certainly a top class and very useful, and near the top of his division 3-year-old, but as a 4-year-old, it has been a different game altogether for Gunrunner, who the connections have said, assuming he runs well in the Breeders' Cup, this was heading into the Classic, of course. They said, our next big goal will be the January 27, 2018 Pegasus over at Gulfstream Park. So that is great news for us, and you might have that matchup, Ronnie, between Gunrunner in the Classic and the Distaff winner, an older champion female, in Forever Unbridled.
Forever Unbridled also said they're going to try the Pegasus, so things are starting to percolate, and we'll see how that turns out, but it's going to be a great race, especially if, as you said, Horse of the Year Gunrunner is here, and he's supposed to be here, of course, down in the Pegasus World Cup.
Yes, the Pegasus World Cup. Now a very star-crossed second half to 2017 for Arrogate, who wound up checking in a dead heat for 5th with our local boy, Gunavera. We say thank you, Arrogate, for the memories. It didn't end how it began, but you were terrific, and best of luck at stud. Arrogate will always be that first ever winner of the Pegasus at Gulfstream Park. Now, we had a number, in addition to Gunavera and even Arrogate to an extent, of rooting interest on that Breeders' Cup 34. One of them was actually, 2 of them were in the same race. Backtracking to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, the opening BC race on the Saturday card at Del Mar. Watch the wide trip out of Caledonia Road, and Mike Smith, who never had an opportunity to save just an inch of ground. She was more than good enough to upset the field at a big price for our good buddy Ralph Nix and the Gray Blonde Bomber. Checking it third.
Blonde Bomber completely dead last in the early stages, and you see Blonde Bomber, the number 5, just keeps coming and coming and coming. And of course, Ralph's horse, Caledonia Road, wins it. But look at Blonde Bomber. What a great performance that is. Just misses getting second money. Could have been an all South Florida connection exacta, but not bad for Blonde Bomber. And certainly congratulations to the Knicks and the connections of Caledonia Road. And we'll be seeing that horse over at Gulfstream Park too.
Yeah, a 3-year-old filly by Quality Road, or 2-year-old filly, excuse me. She's run 3 times. She's won 2 of those races, and again, trained by Ralph Nix, and a hearty congratulations to Ralph and Stacy. Stacy works with us here at the Stronach Group, and could see her, obviously, in the winner's circle with her husband, Ralph Nix, who's claimed the fame before going out on his own, was a near 15-year veteran of working for Hall of Fame trainer Bill Mott, and just the second Grade 1 win of Ralph Nix's career, and his first ever in the Breeders' Cup. So a Saturday to remember, and we'll look forward to seeing Caledonia Road and Blonde Bomber throughout the classic 3-year-old filly races throughout the winter season over at Gulfstream Park. There's still a lot to digest with Breeders' Cup 34, but over at Gulfstream Park, it seemed like the fans were out in force and betting with both fists, betting our races at GPW with both fists, and we really appreciate that. And as we get back to reality to an extent, let's try to come up with some winners and have some fun on this Sunday, the November 5th. Now, we do have a carryover, a little more than $4K in that super high 5. In fact, 8 ready to rumble in our first race on the afternoon. A turf event for maiden claimers. Hey Bub will be the horse to beat from the rail. He's already 9 to 5. You know we can't begin, in fact, a GPW card or any day here in South Florida as far as racing is concerned without a 50-cent early pick 5. And that carryover, Ronnie, in the Rainbow Six continues to grow day by day.
$17,000 plus, no singles yesterday, thus the carryover this afternoon. So starting to build, and we'll see how that turns out. And the beauty of it, of course, as we always tell you, only a 20-cent wager.
And a 50-cent late pick 5 up for grabs. No carryover to report in the late pick 5. And we do hope you enjoyed your extra hour of Z's this morning. Maybe put that time to good use if you were up doing a little handicapping. And tell you, Mike Maker here locally in Miami Gardens had a gigantic Saturday afternoon, sweeping both 3-year-old turf stakes on our Breeders' Cup Saturday program. He's in the mix with a couple of runners on today's card. And in addition to looking at and just aesthetically speaking about the program, we get a little Caribbean Classic preview in race 8.
Race 8 today, we have 4 horses. Their last starts were in Puerto Rico, and they are sort of prepping for the Caribe Classic just down the road when the championship meet starts.
And that'll be on Saturday, December 9th, once that championship meet gets underway a week earlier on December 2nd. Now let's dive into the action, shall we? Glad you're with us as we settle in. Ron and Jason live from our Gulfstream studios on this Sunday afternoon and a beautiful day in Miami Gardens. It is a perfect Sunday for thoroughbred racing. And off that, and with that in mind, we'll take a look at my early pick 5 play. You've got a very good single, I think, in the mix here, Ronnie. A horse who I think many people playing this early 5 and maybe the opening pick 3s, the early 4, will be leaning heavily on your best bet today, the old-time pro, Class and Cash.
Class and Cash, a perfect 2 for 2 on this course. A 4-time winner at the distance, ran its eyeballs out in the Laurel Dash in his last start. So I just think Class and Cash is the one to beat, and certainly you have it singled on your early pick 5 ticket.
And some really good turf races today. The Class and Cash races, solid. The 4th race, a 7-furlong turf war. Now, that'll be run on the main track, and you got a bunch of hard-hitting pros ready to rumble in there. And I used 3 to Cash, even though I do like Son of Tara quite a bit, considering she is very lightly raced, and I thought took a big forward move last time out. But let's turn our attention. The first of 10. Forget about any Breeders' Cup weekend hangover. We get right back into it here at GPW, and let's dive into this $10,000 3-and-up maiden claimer on the turf at 7.5 furlongs. A race in which, and you probably saw that short comment with my early pick 5, in which I saw fit to use the 2 favorites, the 2 inside runners. And any way you slice it, and even if you don't like Hey Bub and Southern Cal, it's all about the rematch between those 2.
Yeah, I think those are absolutely the 2 to beat in the open event. We'll start it off with that inside horse, Hey Bub. It's going to break from the rail after a solid turf outing at the distance in which he tracked the pace throughout, and he finished second, beaten only 1.5 lengths, 1 1/4 lengths actually, as the favorite that afternoon. And in my estimation, if I was putting an early pick 5 ticket together, I might single Hey Bub.
Well, he's got that early speed, and I think tactically that may give him a sizable edge over his rival in the number 2, Southern Cal. Over a turf course, not that there's been any sort of conveyor belt unbeatable speed bias, but by and large, you need to be, it seems, for the most part, either on the lead or in that first flight to really have a chance at crunch time, and Hey Bub has got that going for him in race number 1 as the favorite. Moving on to race number 2, we'll hit the dirt today. The number of starter allowances on this Sunday, November 5th here at GPW, and that, I think, tells you one thing. You're in store for some tough horses who hit hard and have won a lot of races, and the second today, no exception, as we go the mile and a 16th on the dirt, and we begin, and I think the first sort of real favorite on the program comes in the form of a 15-time winner in the number 3 Mount Guapo, who's really enjoyed a renaissance, Ronnie, off the claim for trainer Oscar Gonzalez. Where Mount Guapo is currently and where he was around Memorial Day weekend when he was picked up for just $6,250. You're almost dealing with two different horses. He is just firing on all cylinders.
Not only is he a fifth-time winner, he's had 4 career victories at this distance, 11 races, 4 wins, a second and a third. He drops, he stretches out today. He vied for the lead, and he finished second. And that was a 62,500 optional claimer going a mile right here on the sealed sloppy track. Boy, he looks like the one to beat on paper.
And it'll be the first mount on this program today for the returning Breeders' Cup Classic rider, and Edgar Zayas. Didn't work out as far as a win photo and major upset in yesterday's $6 million Classic, but dead heating with a former champion, not too bad, with Gunnevera checking in 5th, in a tie, of course, for 5th with Arrogate. It's good to have Edgar and Tyler Gaffalione back on this circuit. Where do you go for second? I preferred another speed horse, much like Malguapo in the 8, Good Time Had by All, who is out for his 17th lifetime win in career start 87 after debuting, get this folks, right between Super Savers Kentucky Derby and his Preakness in May of 2010.
He knows everything. I told you this guy.
Student of the game, man.
What I did was I saw the speed that you did with Malguapo, with the 8 horse, but I took a horse that I thought might close in second, and that's got some mojo. He does his best running in the latter stages of the race. I think he sits the garden spot behind the oodles of speed I seen here, and he's 2 for 2 at this distance, so I just thought he was the logical one. And you mentioned Mike Maker. We cannot leave him off the ticket with the number 6 pattern, debuting locally for that barn, stretching out to a mile in the 16th. Really lost all chance when he broke in the air, going 7 furlongs at Keelan. Want to show you a stat on Mike Maker. First start after the claim, he claimed him out of that race. Sprint the route on the dirt. He's 6 for 37, 16%. In the money, 62% of the time. $1.14 return of investment. If there is a hot barn, this is the barn you pay attention to.
5 for 8 at the current stand is Mike Maker on the heels of yesterday's 2 stakes wins at GPW. And in addition to Edgar, you've got the first Sunday mount here in South Florida for Tyler Gaffalione, riding for Mike Maker. And Tyler, you talk about, he did it all summer, racking up the frequent flyer miles, but this weekend in particular, Del Mar for a couple on Friday, shipping into New York, rode a full plate yesterday at the Big A, and then back home with us here in Miami Gardens. So good to have those guys back, Edgar and Tyler, with chances in race 2. Third race on the program. Let's get on to this group. A $25,000 starter allowance for 3-year-olds and up at a mile and a 16th on the turf. Why don't we check out the number 4, Class and Cash, and talk about this runner who's done a lot of good, and he has got races on the go back that, I mean, you just have to almost marvel with this runner. He's been so good for so long. He needs to work out a trip, though, because there's other speed in the race.
Yeah, he's a perfect 2 for 2 on this course. A 4-time winner at the distance, make his local return. As I said, for Jane Sabelli, he closed to come winning ahead of winning the 6 furlong, $100,000 Laurel Dash. His last start, you know this horse is going to be in the first flight today. Got to not get caught in that speed duel today.
But it does seem, and maybe to an extent he was a bit, and not to belabor and just ramble on about a horse who's even money on the line and might even be a little shorter than that because of his body of work, but it seemed like he was out of his element last time out, turning back to 6 in Maryland, and he didn't make the lead, and he still fired a big one, losing a tough head to a horse by the name of Snow Day, who's really done some good things in turf sprints. So 4-3 for Ronnie and I. In fact, a cold, well, not a cold try. We both have the 6 in the number, but a cold 4-3 exacta as we bring back Songer, one of 2 runners on the program today for trainer Todd Pletcher. And this horse, I was shocked nobody jumped in and grabbed him for $16,000 when we last saw him right before Todd left town to gear up for Saratoga on June 29th.
Well, now listed as a gelding, the son of Unbridled Song has been training forwardly at Palm Beach Downs in preparation for the return. So let's take a look at a stat in the claiming ranks for Todd Pletcher. Layoff of 61 to 180 days, all claiming levels on the dirt. You don't really see a lot of claiming horses, but he's good. He's 13 for 54, 24%, 48% in the money, and $1.78 return of investment. So good stats in here. And Songer comes back and runs like it did when we saw it last. Could be very dangerous. And here, as I mentioned, coming back as a gelding today.
By the late Unbridled Song, and no doubt North American breeders will pick up a highly coveted stallion by Unbridled Song for the breeding season of 2018 in Arrogate. What do you think he stands for? Do you have any idea with his fizzle? sizzle second half of the year?
100,000.
That would be my
I'm
guess.
guessing, but that's
100, $125.
Yeah. And if he goes up,
seems
then,
a little lower. You know what I mean?
Usually when they do well that first year, they'll go up to 150 right after that. See how it goes. But you never know. He might turn out to be the greatest side. If he could run like he ran in the Travers a couple of years ago, he's certainly going to be worth the money.
All right, let's take a little breather, Ronnie. We've got Turf Filly Mare Grass Horses coming up as we chase the rainbow on a gorgeous Sunday here in Miami Gardens. A lot more coming your way after. In fact, well, did we talk about race number 4? No, I skipped race 4, and I thought I lost the IFB. So it's good to hear Brad in my ear. Let's move on to the $16,000 starter allowance, in which Victor Barboza Jr., you know, talking about guys like Edgar and Tyler back in town who have a busy day ahead of them in the saddle. This is the mid portion of the Sunday card in which Victor Barboza Jr. has got a major contender in the 5th, which we'll have for you after the upcoming break. And he sends out 2 in this race, including Charlie the Greek and the one that I like in the number 6, Cautious Giant, who lost a tough one, boy, last time out on September 24th.
And stretching out today to 7 furlongs. This horse has run well in the past at that 7 furlong distance. Dueled throughout, as you mentioned. He finished second. It was a competitive 16 optional claimer going 6 furlongs. That was on that good track over at Gulfstream Park on that main track that was wet that afternoon. I want to show you a stat on this barn over the last 5 years. First start after claim, sprints on the dirt, 7 for 16. 44%. Hey, look at this. 94% in the money with a positive return of investment. So you know, we don't have to tell you how good Victor Barboza Jr. does, but I'm in agreement. I like the 6 Cautious Giant right on top of my ticket.
And in his last race, coming down to Gulfstream, I was very much against him as a big 3-5 favorite, and he ran far better than I thought he would in that race. Never had a breather. Basically, short price aside, was under the gun, inside and out, vying between every step of the way, and in the end could not hold off a rail-running long shot, and thanks God. And with a horse who, you talk about being ambitiously campaigned, I mean, he has got one wacky-looking, topsy-turvy resume, trying graded stakes. He was a rabbit at one point in the Whitney, trying to set up a late run out of War Story. I think he's dangerous and maybe a good claim for $16,000. I think Victor's other horse, Charlie the Greek, has a chance, and McFly, who you've got 3rd and I've got 2nd. 7 might dilute his closing kick just a little bit, but I think in terms of ability, this is a very good field for him to run against.
Yeah, and he was second behind hard-knocking Dangerous Ben. That was that state-bred optional claimer going 3/4 across town. Stanley Gold is a trainer, and Edgar Zayas in the saddle. So these young jockeys, they're amazing. They're in California 1 minute, and then they're in the 4th race the next day right here at Gulfstream Park.
Nice to be in your early 20s, right, my friend?
Absolutely.
No, those guys bring great levity to this jockey colony, and of course the war will get deeper in about a month with the championship meet, but the momentum is undoubtedly on the side of Tyler Gaffalione and Edgar Zayas. And the same can be said for us. We could take that little breather. Turf Fillies and Mares on the other side of the break as we chase the rainbow on a sunny Sunday here at GPW.
Coming down to the finish with Fort Lauderdale to catch him. They're not going to catch him. Fort Lauderdale, the winner. He went clear of the knob, and he's coming home, turning handsprings. Fort Lauderdale. Brilliant in the statement monster. What a thriller in the British Cup Classic. Fort Lauderdale gets deep, nose and nose to the wire. Fort Lauderdale has won it. And Ghost Zepper is pulling away. Ghost Zepper blows them away with an eye-opening performance. Again has won. Ghost Zepper kicking clear. Shaman Ghost.
And it's 4 down and 6 to go. A hearty welcome back on this live Sunday edition of Gulfstream West Today. Again, hope you enjoyed that extra hour of sleep. Ron and Jason did as well, dreaming of Rainbow Six scores. And by the way, before we throw to your ticket, a poll online, and we invite you to follow Gulfstream Park in all of our social media avenues. Ron, I, Acacia are on Twitter. Sent out a poll this morning, and I'm curious to hear your answer right now. Season ended today. There's obviously a few big races left in 2017, but let's forget about that. The season ended yesterday with the Breeders' Cup. Who do you make champion trainer in your eyes? Chad, Pletcher, or Baffert?
That's a good question.
You don't have all day.
I got to think about it here. You throw right now. I'd have to say Chad.
Yeah, Chad seems to be an overwhelming favorite with the fan vote. We had far over the last time I looked, 200 votes. So definitely take a look at that online and give us a follow on Twitter, Facebook, and Gulfstream Park all over the place as we get ready for the winter. Now, after those Pick 6 dreams this morning with the extra hour of Z's, what are we doing?
Here's what I came up with, $43.20. And as you mentioned, a lot of great races this afternoon, very competitive. And I went 3 deep in the opening leg with the 1, 2, and 7. And I just think the race, Fearless Princess maybe beat Son of Tara in here. And then the rest of the progression 2 deep all the way down to the last. And I threw my long shot in there, and that's the 9 horse in the last race. And I couldn't find that single, which I'm always searching for. So we'll see how this one plays out today. I think it's very, very competitive.
Ooh, my Cowboy. Nice price in the last.
Yeah, 12-1, I believe.
Nice, and that's a good cash out. That is another solid, I hate to repeat myself, but with these starter allowances, they just bring together horses that, for the most part, are in raging form and have had big 2017 campaigns up through this point. Now, the first leg is all about the starter 12-5 Fillies and Mares on the turf at 7.5 furlongs. And as we check out the last race on October 12th of the number 2 Son of Tara, I walked away from this effort, and she had a good trip, basically sat on the rail throughout, and Leonel Reyes did everything right, just sat on the rail, and that's where she was from the get-go in this 12-5 starter. The fact that she was only running for the 3rd time this day, Ronnie, and at least for what it's worth, the seasoning and foundation and experience, she was in against some salty older horses who had had quite a few starts under their belt. I was really encouraged that she could take a step forward after drilling a much easier field when she broke her maiden.
Yeah, I wrote my analysis, lightly raced 3-year-old daughter of a U.S. Ranger who's shown tons of promise in those races. So certainly, I think the slight turn back to 7.5 furlongs today might help her even more. But I did go, we have our exacta flip-flop in here. And I went with Fearless Princess because this one's changing barns, going to the Victor Barboza Jr. barn after the clay makes her first start. She finished a 6-wide third, but it was behind a trio of next out winners, a 10-claimer going 7.5 across town on the Gulfstream turf. I just thought off that performance key race, but I'm using both, as you saw in my ticket.
And we both have the outside runner, or close to the outside, and Mikwaima. In fact, she is in that final post of 8 with the scratches of the 9, Bassiata, and the MTO, the number 10, just before. And speaking of scratches, in a few moments, we'll catch up with our man, Pete Aiello. He'll have everything you need to write down, and very few, the best news there, very few defections on the card. Now, the late pick 5 begins with a very interesting and maybe promise-filled Florida-bred 2-year-old maiden special weight on the main track at 5.5 furlongs. I think you're in one of either camp. You either are a big fan, and this is definitely taking the glasses half full approach of the number 5 Elk Camp, or you just don't really like the horse and think he's going to be an underlaid favorite again, as he was, it turned out, in his debut. I am going to single him, and hoping the horse that they paid about $250,000 for and looked so good in his 2-year-old in training Salisbury's back in May shows up today. He's either going to be a trap, a bust, or a lock second time out for the Pletcher barn. 3-horse spread for me in races 7, 8, and 10. I love the nightcap today. That is a really good cash out that centers around Perfect Tay, who you don't have 1, 2, 3.
No, I thought Bird Yuma wins that race in the end, and in my long shot, as I mentioned. So we'll see how it goes.
And a little Yager. Yager gets a nice weather day.
Yeah, and good. The horse has been in really good form, stepping it up a little bit, but in good form.
And I'm amazed as well, the amount of turf sprinters, and I'm talking run and gun, hard-hitting, classy vet-type turf sprinters in the Zadie barn. He's got a couple running today in My Sweet Dove, and he's also got one by the name of Dubai Bob in race number 9. So the Zadie barn locked and loaded, to say the least, and needless to say, Panny Price. We look forward to him resurfacing here on this South Florida racing circuit. But again, getting back to Elk Camp, my single in this first leg, Gaffleone stays. There's no layoff, and the fact that Pletcher wheels this horse back, 4 weeks after with no layoff off a debut in which this horse was hustled and did never lifted a hoof.
Well,
I'm going to take that as a positive.
Well, they didn't, the horse didn't run a step. It got beat 16.5 lengths as the favorite that afternoon. I was amazed. He just didn't do anything that day. He was fractious a little bit before the start, but he shows a couple of Palm Beach Downs workouts since that disappointing debut. So we'll see how he runs this afternoon. I got him down ticket. You're going to have to prove to me after that one I got to watch one, but I went with, talking about Zadie, I went with the 2 Our Secret Life on top, and I thought you have on your ticket. I thought Scotus Care might be able to grab a share of it in that race.
Yeah, don't be fooled with him stepping up off a maiden 50. Now, unless you get a killer effort out of El Camp or Marquee Moon, who was bet off the board first out from Fox, or Our Secret Life really takes a step forward third time out. That maiden 50 he's exiting was as good, bar none, as most of the Florida-bred maiden special weights we run for the 2-year-olds. Race number 7 on the afternoon, 5 furlongs, $25,000 starter allowance. These are 3 and up fillies and mares, and if I'm not mistaken, the first horse thus far on today's card for Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies winning trainer Ralph Nix, who has the number 7 Lady Coventry. I want the early speed, and look, she's got a big chance. Ronnie's got her third. I got her second. They've got to run down, though, the 4 My Sweet Dove, who going back to a race right around Preak this weekend on May 18th, she can flaunt her speed as a very quick turf sprinter, and I just didn't want to get too cute, that is, as we show you the race back on May 18th with My Sweet Dove, who just rolls early, and when she's good and in the right spot, she can definitely sustain that speed.
Yeah, this was 3 starts back, and on the turf, of course, she just cruised the victory. And as we mentioned ad nauseum over the last couple of days, looks like you need to have that tactical speed to be successful on the turf course here. Things get dicey. Of course, you can close, but I tried and get cute here, talking about being cute, and that was with the 2 Moms of Cougar, now in the Pedro Castillo barn. It's a lightly raced order of Cantheros, cuts back to 5/8 today. You know, return from the layoff, stalked and weakened to finish 4th. It was a 50 starter allowance, going 6 furlongs, ups in Belmont Park. So I just thought coming back maybe beats My Sweet Dove. You got to use both of those. You mentioned Lady Coventry already,
who's back on her preferred surface and is coming out of her last turf race, that produced 3 next out winners, including Tilly's Lily, who really looks like a tigress in the making, and unbeaten in 3 starts turf sprinter for Jonathan Thomas. Why don't we hit the road as we get on to race number 8 here this afternoon? I was pleasantly surprised looking at the entries a few days ago of this $35,000 starter allowance at a mile and a 16th. And of course, we've got the first ever outside of Latin America and the Caribbean Classic over at Gulfstream Park on December 9th. You've got no fewer than 4 horses prepping for a race on that Caribbean Classic program, the best looking of which in our estimation is Michigash, who I think stands for crazy.
Yeah, well, you looked right at me when he said that.
You're crazy and a goofball, but we love you. Everybody should have a Ronnie. I know I do, and I love him. Anyway, we'll get you down to the Grade 1 action towards the end of July in Puerto Rico with this horse's near last to first victory in this Group 1 Barbosa Stakes, highlighted in the hot pink silks. And what a sustained run. And the best news of all, prepping for the Caribbean Classic, aside from the fact that these horses will get a race locally in South Florida, it's nice having YouTube for these replays if you want to do your homework.
Yeah, and Michigas runs exceptionally well here. But what I liked and why I put this horse on the ticket, this horse had a race up at Belmont, claimed out of a $40,000 claim at Belmont, and then was sent to Puerto Rico to run in this race there. Yep. So I just thought off that performance in this particular spot, I was going to go with Michigas on top of my ticket. Just thought that fit here, and we'll see how that plays out.
And with the, obviously, Hurricane Maria and everything like that, we're thrilled to have these Puerto Rican horses with us. And as I wrote my analysis, welcome to Florida, boys. It really is nice having you. Jay's Way, my top pick, one of my old friends and pals up in the Big Apple, is now with Armando de la Cerda, and I know you pulled a pretty nice number.
Yeah, first after a trainer switch in sprints on the dirt, he's 6 for 18, 33%. He's in the money 50% of the time, and a $1.75 return of investment. So lots of positive things. And Jay's Way, when all the smoke clears, is absolutely the one to beat. Michigas, you know, where I'm taking a couple of shots, you know, that he might run well, but he looks like he fits this level of competition perfectly. Jay's Way, got to be on your ticket.
And Dreaming of Gold, we learn a bit more about a horse who, surprisingly, at least in our estimation, was bet off the board closing day of the summer meet at Gulfstream and ran out of his mind, winning that return to dirt for Victor Barboza. Does he have another one in him? Is he a one-hit wonder? We'll see. Race number 9, we get right back into the $25,000 starter allowance types on the turf, and we get also right back to Ralph Zadie, who just seems to have one after another down the shed row of these very fast, classy, durable, and older turf sprinters. And Dubai Bob, no exception there. 7-year-old gelding, who's actually on the lightly race side. He's only given you a dozen lifetime starts, but he's quick, and we showed his race a couple of times from July 15th, including this effort off the claim over at Gulfstream Park. He can run and gun with the best of them.
Yeah, he's awful quick, and he's going to certainly be the one to catch in here. You turned from a couple of month layoff. He dual Filiti weekend to finish 5th, but that was behind that repeat stakes winner, Extravagant Kid. But this horse, this is not that race, but this horse was very impressive. That was the $50,000 Tamiami I was alluding to. So that a little tougher competition last time out, but if this horse does this again, it's going to be awful tough to catch.
And I just love that white streak right down his face. It looks like Tom Sawyer or Huck Finn took the white paint and just whoop, right down his face. But the speedy Dubai Bob has to be caught. Diddley is so versatile and has a chance, as does the number 8 Super Spender, who's in town. One of a couple of key runners on the card today for Jane Sabelli, as more familiar names and faces arrive with their snowbird strings here in South Florida. Let's wrap it up, Ronnie. 12-5 starter allowances on the turf end the week. Week number 5 this meeting at GPW at 7.5 furlongs. And we have one more replay to get to. And this one concerns Ronnie's top pick, who's been in razor-sharp form. And it's pretty amazing looking at the job both Bird Humor and his trainer, Reed Nagel, have accomplished and done together. He's won a whole bunch this year at 5 for 12. And last time out was stepping up in class, but the result was the same.
Yeah, he beat it by a neck. He's won 5. That was his 5th victory of the year. So Bird Humor on top of my ticket. I closed it out. My long shot. My Cowboy got some speed. Maybe gets loose on the front end and steals it.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how the pace plays out. He should pull a good trip, maybe setting up shop. If he doesn't get loose, right off the number 2, Dr. J-Dub, who's a stretch out from an inside post. I like the 8 Perfect Hay. I just like his overall consistency and became a fan of his fact that he was just so consistent over the summer at Gulfstream Park, and I have no problem with him running 3rd most recently when he was wired, that is, by the Craziness, who's coming back a bit earlier in the day. This is a fun card, Ronnie, isn't it?
The Craziness is speed, and this one just couldn't reel into Craziness. A logical choice on there, but trying to beat it with Bird Humor just on a consistent angle. Great card, lots of fun this afternoon. Good luck with all your selections out there.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of geldings today. I mean, you really get a sense of the heart and soul and backbone of the game here in South Florida, and that's a perfect segue into our man upstairs who does it all, Pete Aiello, standing by with those scratches and changes.